Welcome to today's class. My name is Jon Witt, and this is my son Noah. And this is a Hatha yoga class. So if you've never taken the class, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. And if there's anything that you just can't do, you could always observe. You could always watch. And I've said this over and over again. It's nice that you can do it at your own capacity and speed, so we can always adapt it. If you had questions or if you're really struggling with something, you could send me a video and I could help you more directly with that. So you don't need a lot of equipment today. I'm going to use a wall just for some balance and some strength work. So with modern yoga or even in classical yoga, you're on your hands more these days. But using a wall can be a really great asset to build up some strength and awareness as far as how to get on the floor and be successful in pushing. So I'll use the wall for that, and I'll do some things at the wall for your legs in terms of developing more strength and range. So I'm going to start in a standing position, and I'm just going to be having my feet, just a little bit wider than, say, my shoulders, and with my feet a little bit wider than my shoulders, I'm just going to be moving my pelvis just in a bit of a twist, but don't be so fast with it initially. So I'm just turning the hips as I'm turning. It's eventually going to be moving the upper body and moving the spine. So if it doesn't just move as I'm moving, over time, as you do this gently, you'll be able to move your pelvis more freely. And then I'm going to come back into the middle, and I'm just elevating each side of my pelvis. So let's say your pelvis, again, does not move like this. It's okay, right? What's important is that you're working at it, and over time you'll be able to develop it a little bit more. So I'm going to come back into the middle, and I'm just moving my tailbone down, and I'm sticking it out. So just getting the pelvis to move. You may think like, oh, I don't necessarily need this, but I work with many people, and it's difficult for them, and it's harder for them to move and just in walking. So that's why I'm doing more of these things. I'm going to take the arms into a cactus position, and when I'm here, I'm going to open and close the hands. And what you could do is you could actually look at the fingers. I'll tell people, hey, this one finger doesn't move, and they don't really realize it until I point it out to them. They're like, it's moving, and it's not. And it's like, again, it's fine, but maybe you can be more specific in isolating the joints of the hands. So you're getting the hands to flex and extend. So I'm going to take the arms straight up overhead, and my hands could be wider than, say, my shoulders. My arms could be up towards my ears, so I'm really expressing through the arms. So this is scapula elevation. And then I'm going to relax the shoulders, and then I'm going to elevate the scapula, and then I'm going to relax the shoulders, and then I'm going to elevate. I'm going to stay elevated for a couple seconds here. I'm going to hook the thumbs, and I'm going to come up on the toes. I'm going to lift the heels. So when I'm up on my toes and I'm lifting through the arms, maybe you need to come down and up. Or say you were walking around and doing this. That works too. I'm going to lower the heels, and I'm going to take the arms down. I'm just going to have my feet just in a line. And if I can, I'm going to step my left foot in front of my right. So I'm just in this straight line. So all balancing poses are good, but when they become easy, it's good to implement something that's actually going to make it more difficult. And making it more difficult could be where you're closing your eyes. And you could certainly use a wall, right? You don't have to do it with your eyes closed, but if you have a wall close to you, then you always have something to touch. So I'm going to bring my left foot next to my right, and then my right foot in front of my left. And this will really help stabilize the ankle, which will help your knee. So if you have a difficult time with your joints, it's good to become more stable, and the ankles can become unstable, the hips can become unstable, and that can affect obviously the way that you are moving in life. So I'm going to take my feet back into neutral, and I'm going to take my feet out into a wide space, and with my feet out wide, I'm going to turn my right foot out to the right, and I'm going to bend my right knee, and I'm going to be in a warrior two position. So say you had tight shoulders or weak arms, the arms could come up momentarily and then you could bring them down, right? But as I'm here, what I'm trying to do is push the legs apart, and then as I push them apart, it's to help open up the hips. So just take a couple deep breaths, right? And then I'm going to have the right leg straight. I'm going to bring the arms down. I'm turning the right foot in, and I'm turning the left foot to the left, and I'm taking the arms out. And as I'm bending the knee, I'm laterally opening up the hips. So no different than when you say you sit on the floor and you have a difficult time sitting on the floor. Well, it's a matter of, getting the thighs to move out. Obviously, the tissues might be tight and they might affect you in terms of the way that you sit. But as you get wider, it makes it easier. All right, so a couple deep breaths here. I could be looking over my left hand. That's typically how it's taught. But I could also be looking over the right. I could be looking really anywhere. Anywhere that it's difficult to look, turning your head, I think is a good way of developing it. And then my left leg will be straight, and my left foot will turn in. And then I'm just going to take the feet back into the middle. So as I bring my feet back in the middle, I'm just going to do a really basic side bend to the right. So I'm just leaning to the right, lifting through the left side. And as you're lifting through the left side, try it with the head down. And if it's better to look up or look in a different direction, you could do that. But I'm going to bring myself up and then side bend to the left side, and then it's the right side. So this is, passive stretching. When I work with someone that's pretty tight, they always want to come out of it, which is okay, right? But then to spend more time on it. So if that was the case for you, I would do more repetitions rather than longer holds, because you want to get practice in. So it could be a long hold. Like I could hold this for a very long time. But for a lot of people, they may need to only hold it for 5-10 seconds, and then you could just keep repeating that. And you could pick a small number, like say, five times to start with. So my feet are going to be at the top of my mat. And with the feet here, I'm going to bend my knees, and I'm going to step my left foot back into a lunge. And then as I'm in this lunge, I'm going to take the arms up into an overhead position. So like we did in the warm-up, I was lifting my arms or lifting my shoulders towards my ears. Right? And as I'm pushing through the heel of my right foot, I'm trying to lift through the pubis. So I can really use my lower back, which isn't necessarily wrong, but to really open up more of the back hip, I'm trying to get my tailbone to move more and more underneath me. And then I'm going to bring my arms down, and I'm just going to move my left foot in a little bit closer. Right? This could be your balancing position, but I'm going to come forward where I'm balancing on my right foot. My right knee is bent, and I'm doing it so that if I didn't have the flexibility to do this, this is often viewed as wrong. It's okay. It's actually going to build up more strength in the front of the leg. If my leg is straight, it's more based in flexibility. I have a wall that I could always use, right? And then I'm going to go back up into a high lunge. And in a high lunge, I'm just here, right? And just say it's off, right? Which can be the case. I could have both of my legs straight. So if I feel like unstable or it's just too much for me, I could have the legs straight. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend my right knee and do a little bit more motion. So I'm sitting into the pose. And maybe this is my angle, right? But I'm going to try to sit a little bit deeper, and then I'm going to bring myself up, right? And if static holds are better for you, definitely use a static hold, right? But I'm moving into a deeper lunge each time. So it's really active, it's weighted, and that's what can produce more range for yourself. And then have the right leg straight, and you can bring the arms down. And I'm going to step the left foot in a bit closer, and I'm going to do an elevated pyramid. I'm moving forward, purposely keeping myself upright. For those of you that cannot fold all the way forward or you're concerned with your back, but it's a very good stretch of the back of the leg. and into the outside of the hip. It's good to get lower. I just know that not everybody can. I'm happy if you were lower, right? It's also a very good way. So lift yourself up and then step your left foot forward. Then what we're going to do is, because it's really heavy on the right leg, the right leg might be tight. I'm just going to do a quad stretch, and I could use the wall for that. But I'm going to, just so that you can see, I'm going to bend my right knee. I'm grabbing my right foot, right? So if it's just passive flexibility, obviously hold the shin or hold the foot. But if you're a person with good flexibility, I'd be lifting the leg up and bringing it down, right? So if you went running or cycling or you did a lot of walking, you'll probably appreciate more of a static hold and stretching it out. All the above is correct in my opinion. So keep lifting through the front of your body and then bringing the right foot down. And this, it's not really, unless you're just doing seated positions, it might be something that you really need more of, that last stretch. And there's lots of different variations of it. So I'm going to bend my knees at the top of my mat. I'm going to step my right foot back into a lunge. I'm going to take the arms up overhead. And I'm going to really lift up through the arms so that my shoulders are up towards the ears. Once you develop this, you don't have to do it like this. But I find often for people, it's something that is missing. And your scapula should move, right? The bones should be able to move. When I have my left leg straight, and I can try to get a sense if I am moving enough through my tailbone. So my tailbone moves down and my pubic bone moves up. And I've said this before, it may be that you're not able to reposition the pelvis because you're weak in your abdomen or you're very tight in your shoulders. 2 factors. Then I'll have the left leg straight. I'll take the arms down. I'm going to step my right foot in a little bit closer. And this could be my balancing pose, right? But I'm going to come forward if I can. And it's good to have something in front of you as like a safety net. So you feel like, oh, well, if I did fall, I could touch something, right? But as I'm here, I'm purposely bending the knee if I want my leg to be stronger, my front leg, or I'm having my leg purposely straight if I'm trying to produce more hip flexion or hamstring flexibility. So I'm going to bend the left knee. I'm coming back up into that high lunge. And with a really long stance, it's very productive in the back hip. A shorter stance is more loaded in the front leg, a lot like a squat, like a single leg squat, right? Very similar but different. So my legs are straight just to calibrate. And then I'm going to go back to bending the left knee and exploring, and I say this often when I'm going into a deeper range of motion. It's really going into like out of alignment and going into a bigger range. So I'm going to go back into bending the left knee, moving forward in space. Eventually, my hamstring can touch my calf muscle. Not that that's like a necessity, it's just a byproduct of doing the position. Then my left leg will be straight. I'm going to bring my arms down. I'm going to step my right foot in. So I'm in this pyramid position. Wider is more stable. So you can get more stable with that. I'm going to come forward where I'm in this flat back position. And then I'm just getting more exposure into the back of my leg. So if you want to get the hips to be level, the backs of your hands can be on your pelvis. So I'm moving forward, contracting my thighs, obviously breathing, using tension in my abdomen, and then bringing myself up and stepping my right foot forward. So again, to stretch out the quadricep, I'm going to bend my left knee and just bring it up so that I want the foot to touch the hand. And let's say it's weak and it cramps, right? Bring it down before that happens, but I'm going to take it up. And like I said, if you're really just needing more flexibility, you could grab the foot or the shin and you bring it down. Like again, if you're a very active person, you'll probably appreciate that about yoga, is that it's obviously not just stretching, but it is largely based in, passive flexibility, and some of it is active, right? So I'm lifting the foot into my glute. I'm using effort. There's, could just hold the foot, but I'm actually trying to bring the foot in more, not with my hand, but with the strength of my hamstring. And then I'm bringing my left foot down. So, it just changes it a little bit. When I go to the wall, as I said, I'm going to use some terms of pushing strength. So it could be just that you're static and you're like plank. That's the very basic way of doing it. But what you can do is be up on the toes, have the hands turned out, have the hands, about 3 inches lower than, say, the shoulders. And what you can do is you can bend the elbows and come back up to straight arms, right? And we're just going to be doing push-ups at the wall. And it's very easy to say, well, I don't need this. This is a complete waste of time. But if you were injured, or if you really lack strength, and at some point we'll all get weaker, this is a very good thing to maintain. So I'm just going to do 10, right? And I'm doing them not incredibly fast. Like if I do them fast, it's actually easier. If I have a speed about 3-4 seconds down, and then I'm coming up, right? They're coming down, and then up, and I'm able to still do many push-ups, but I still find this stimulating. It's obviously not the most stimulating way. It's not the most difficult way of doing them, but it's a good beginning, and it'll actually teach you the proper mechanics and integration to do like a push-up on the floor, which I think is a good goal to have. Like if you were like, hey, I really want to get into like more vinyasa type classes, you should be able to do at least, in my opinion, at least 10 really clean push-ups, like just perfect. And that'll set you up for not getting injured. If you couldn't do that, a lot of people just go in and then they do like lots and lots of volume, and then they hurt their hands or they hurt their shoulders in the process of doing all that repetition, right? But I'm going to take my arms straight up the wall, and I'm going to lean into the wall, but I want to stay away from the wall, if that makes sense. Like I'm moving to the wall, right? But I'm still kind of holding back, and then that'll stretch out my shoulders more. My hands can be really wide here. They don't have to be, narrow. More narrow is going to be most likely a more difficult stretch for you. And then take the hands back into the middle, and I'm going to bring the hands down. And what I'm going to do is just stretch out your shoulders a little bit differently. Very good for handstands, but it's just good in general for anyone. Is my hands are going to be a little bit lower than, or it's going to be a little bit higher than my shoulders. And I'm going to step back. And as I step back here, I'm trying to keep my ribs in. It's very easy to just kind of hang out here, which is still good too, right? But what I'm trying to do is keep more of a cleaner line from my feet to my hips to my shoulders, and I feel it predominantly through my upper back, but you might feel it somewhere else. If you were like, wow, I really need to get out of this, you stretched it out too far. You want to be able to hold it at least for 20-30 seconds. And then over time, right, you can hold it longer. I'm just going to bring the feet back in, and then I'm just standing back up and then bringing my arms down. But you should feel obviously a bigger stretch in the chest and the shoulders, so that'll help you that way. So I'm going to come down on my hands and my knees. So my hands are just underneath my shoulders. My hands are turned out. I'm going to protract my shoulders, really widen out through the scapula, and then bringing my chest down, and then protracting my shoulders, right? Widening out the shoulders. And then I'm going to let the chest move down one more time, and then I'm going to protract, right? And then that'll help just add more stability into the arms when your arms are straight, in plank and, your transitions and terms. But I'm going to come up into plank, And if I couldn't be in plank, I could still be on all fours. So like even if, say you have back pain or whatever, just stay on all fours, you'll still get stronger. And it as you get healthier, then you can start doing plank. But being on all fours is a great way of doing it. So you don't have to come up into plank, all right? So you can push to the hands if you are. You can really resist the floor. Try to make the front of your body stronger. You could be on your fists, you could be on your forearms, all very good. And then you can go up into a down dog. And I'm going to paddle the legs out. Stretching the legs out, reaching down through the heels, right? And then I'm coming forward. And then as I'm coming forward, I'm going to come down on my knees. And when I'm working the transition into a push-up, you might want to put a pillow down, but it's really about keeping the tension. If you lose the tension, that's why you fall, right? It's partially mentally, it's partially physically. So put something out in front of you if that's what you need to come down. But, just push-ups in general, just a basic mechanic that I think is good to maintain. So I'm coming up and I'm on my knees and I'm moving it forward relatively slow if I can. Slow, 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 slow. And then down. And then I'm coming up onto my forearms. And you could do more of those, right? But like I said, if you're doing, faster classes, it's good to do. I just wouldn't do that every day, If that's something that you really enjoy to do, I'd spread it out throughout the week, and then you'll be able to do it longer, just so you don't wear it out. You can look over your left shoulder, because it's most likely going to be very repetitive. You can look over your right shoulder. As you look over your right shoulder, right, you can lift more and more through the collarbone. So I'm moving myself forward in space, right? And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to do some Cobra. I'm going to lift up into a low Cobra, relatively low, or maybe it's slightly higher for you. And just use your awareness as far as should you be up, should you be down. Higher is obviously more leverage, it's not necessarily better. But I'm going to come down, right? But I'm still up, still using the strength of my back. And then I'm going to lift up again. And I'm using the strength of my bum, my glutes, to help support my back. It's not critical to have the hips down, but on better days for myself, like when I'm feeling more, pliable, my hips are down. Today my hips are slightly up, which I'm okay with that. It's just a little bit more leverage into the lower back. So bring yourself forward, bring yourself down. Have your hands underneath your shoulders and just push into the floor. So feel your shoulders, feel your hands, feel your forearms. Then tuck the toes and really push, but maybe you can push into all fours. So there's this, people push and then they collapse. So there's nothing wrong with that. You could do that a few times. Like push, 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 and you won't come up. Every time you do that, you're going to get a little bit stronger. And then eventually you can push, into the top of a push-up, and you can really work it here. But I'm going to come down with my knees, and then I'm sitting back on my feet with my toes tucked. Right? Then I'm going to come back where I'm going to untuck the toes and sit back on the feet. So my feet are, pointed as opposed to flexed. But I'm going to go back to tucking the toes and sitting back on the heels. Right? And then I'm going to sit back on the heels one more time. And these really basic, and then there's more obviously advanced options. When this gets really easy, let me know and I could show you some techniques as far as what's next, because you might be like, well, I've been doing this for a while, I'm ready, and that's the time that you want to do more. But if it's already very stimulating, it's still good, right? Because this could be, a long time before you do those more advanced variations. So I'm going to take my knees purposely off the floor. I'm going to lift up into this really low type of kind of crow position, right? But I'm protracting the shoulders. really spreading the back out. And then I'm going to bring the knees down. I take a couple breaths. So you could do like 10-second holds. It wasn't a really long hold. You could do 5 to 10-second holds. You could do that multiple times. The more rapidly you do it, the less you'll be able to do. If you spread it out, then you can do more volume. So I'm going to lift the knees up off the floor. You don't have to lift the hips as high as I am. Keep the ribs in. And then walk it back up into a down dog. And then in a down dog, right, I'm going to come forward. I'm going to come through into an up dog. So moving through the arms, lifting through the chest, and then going back up into a down dog. And then coming back down on the knees. And I'm going to have my hands turned out. I'm going to do a little bit of wrist work. So, when I first got into yoga, it was really just basically just doing sun salutations. That was really the warm-ups, which is not a terrible thing, but I had a background in calisthenics and athletics, and so I was really ready to do those things. But if you don't have a background like that, it's good to do prep work for the hands, for the wrists. So the back of my hands in the floor, I'm just moving the weight back in space and just kind of see where you need to bring the weight into the hand. I really stretch out the forearm, stretch out the wrist. I'm going to do it on the right side, so my right hand is back. Right? And I'm doing it more as kind of a diagnostic. I'm understanding what it is that I actually need to do, but it does correlate with having better function of the hand and the wrist. But I'm turning my hands in this time, and I'm going to do a circular motion around the circumference of the hands. So if it's uncomfortable, it's probably, in my opinion, very good for you. If it's just god awful and painful, there's ways to make it easier. And that's something that you should do, and then you can make it more progressive, right? And then I'm going to turn the hand, just my left hand back towards my knee. So this is an external rotation, and then I'm sitting back, right? This is where you get more leverage, just rocking back and forward. But side to side is really good. It's going to be easier. And then when you're up for it, then you can rock back. And the nice thing is it's just for a moment that you're going back like this, and then turning the hand forward and then turning the hand back. But some people, when they have their hand flexed, it's not a full 90-degree angle. So in any of these hand positions, the heel of your hand could be elevated, just like, say you don't have full flexion of your ankle, like dorsiflexion of the foot, you could elevate the heel, same thing. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to protract the shoulders and lift up into plank. I'm going to go up into a down dog. I'm going to come forward a few more times into up dog. So swinging forward, coming forward, lifting the chest, and going back up into a down dog. So I'm coming forward, coming through, using your hands, your fingertips, and going back up into a down dog. So what you can do is, if, say, you're just learning side plank, is step your left foot forward halfway on your mat, push through the right foot, and then you can take the left arm up, right? Really kind of a basic way of doing it. The feet can be staggered. They could be stacked. It's less bearing in the knees when the feet are uneven, which I prefer, say, you're struggling in your knees. The classic way is good because it actually is more difficult to balance. So you can do it that way as well, right? So bringing the left hand down and then just coming down. I'm going to step my right foot forward just so that you have that setup. So the easy version is the right foot's halfway and the right arm is up. And, very good way of doing it. But you can, have the feet uneven, or you could stack the feet and really, push enough through the hand so that you're getting more, support for the hand, the wrist, the shoulder, and then bringing the right hand down. And then I'm coming down on the knees, And when I come down on the knees, I'm going to sit back on my feet, and I'm just sitting back just to open up the front of my body, right? So if camel is really, really difficult, kind of see what it is that's stopping you from doing that pose. Could be your quads, could be knee flexion, could be your hips, could be obviously the range or the openness that you have in the frontal line, right? Abdomen, chest, rib cage. I'm just moving the weight around, and then I'm going to come up, taking myself back up into a down dog, going back up into a down dog, pulling back through the hips, and then I'm going to walk my feet forward. And then as I'm walking forward, I'm in this, soft forward bend. It's good to extend. It's good to round. I'm going to round my back. And then as I'm rounding my back, slowly, slowly bringing myself back up. As I'm back up, I'm in this, just basic standing position. But again, bring the tailbone down, lift the pubic bone up. And then you can have the feet, just neutral again, just like one big foot. I'm going to set my left foot again in front of my right. And then I'm just practicing my balance. My eyes are closed. Yours can, of course, be open. But just kind of see how you calibrate the weight. And if you find this easy, it's great that you find it easy, but most likely your feet are crooked. And that's why it's easy. You could bring your left foot next to your right, and then your right foot in front of your left, and then I'm upright. Right? And again, it's like people can totally kind of think like this isn't actually valuable, but until you lose your balance, then it becomes very valuable. But you could have the eyes open or closed. Take a couple deep breaths. And then you can open the eyes, and you can bring your right foot next to your left. And I'm going to do that sequence again at the wall, just the pushing. And, you could do the same number. If, like, say the number that I did earlier was easy, you could repeat that number. But let's say it's hard, then you can do somewhat of a pyramid, is that you could, bring it down. So say I did 10, then you could do 8. And then next time you do it, then you could do 6 and 4 and 2, right? You can bring it down. But I don't ever pull. Obviously in yoga there's not pulling, but that's something that if you're not doing that in your week, at least once a week I'd be doing some sort of pulling exercise. And that could be, a row machine, could be some bands, could be some dumbbells, pull-ups, right? Just to get, because if you're always pushing, it can become an imbalance. But I'm going to have the hands here, again, a little bit lower than my shoulders. And then I'm slowly, slowly lowering, and then pressing back up, bringing myself down, up, exhaling down, inhaling up. And it could be the opposite. So say it was really difficult, the exhale could be coming up, right? Just like in weight training. So lowering, lifting, lowering, lifting back up, lowering back down, lifting yourself up. One more time down, back up. And then I'm going to bring the heels down. I'm walking the feet in, taking the arms up. I'm going to lean into the wall, but again, I'm trying to stay away from the wall. And that's, again, when you're doing a headstand or a handstand, you're really trying to keep this in so that you're not overly arcing in those positions. But again, have the hands wider if you need to, but I'm going to take the hands again, about a little bit higher than my shoulders, and I'm stepping back. And then as I'm stepping back, it could be like more of like a 90-degree angle. This is good. You could also, this is probably going to be a little bit more stable, still really kind of the same effect. So be here. Say this is very stimulating. Be here. This is very good for the shoulders and the chest. But then at some point you want more leverage, then you step back a little bit further. And you don't want to just go back because it's the more difficult variation. You want to do it because it's actually a good variation for you, right? You want to discern between the options. And then I'm going to walk the feet forward, and then I'm bringing my arms down. I'm going to do one exercise at the wall to strengthen your legs. I'll initially do it for posture. It's just a basic wall sit, but then I'm going to elevate the heels. So if you're on a slippery surface, make sure that you're not slipping and doing this, right? So you don't slip and fall. But my feet are going to be forward, about 2.5 feet forward, and then my knees are bent. And I always say this, if you've done this before, sit at a different angle. If you always sit at the same angle, you'll get really good at that angle. And then it's not really helping you as much. You know, just like I say this in other classes, like my handstand class, like if a push-up is easy for you, there's other variations that you could push in, and that would help you get stronger and also be better for your shoulder. Because if you don't want to wear it out. But as I'm here, I'm pulling my elbows back, I'm pulling my shoulders back in the wall. And again, this can be shockingly difficult in a number of ways. And if it is, it'll get easier. You'll adapt. But I'm going to lift my heels off the floor. So purposely lifting the heels off. So I'm working my body up into the wall, and of course set a time, and that can be your benchmark. And then you could do multiple sets of that time, right? I'm just not going to do that because I don't have the time here. And then I'm going to lower the heels and bring myself back up, and then walking my feet back and just standing at the wall. So just kind of feel what's at the wall, what's not at the wall. For me, I need a little bit of a posterior tilt when I stand. For you, it might not be as needed. But, if you have good posture, it's not going to be remarkably revealing. But as you age, you'll probably have some asymmetries, or you'll be skewed a little bit physically. But I'm going to use the wall for a bit of a quad stretch. So you'll fold up your mat. If you got some carpet, or say like a sofa and carpet, that's a better way of doing it. Much easier to do. But this is like, I've mentioned this before, it's an area that's really tight for people if you've been sitting a lot. You've sat a lot in your lifetime, right? Who hasn't? But I'm going to bring my mat to the wall just so that I have some padding. I'm flipping the mat up, and then as I flip it, I'm going to take my knees back. So I'm on all fours, and if you've never done this before, some blocks are nice just to help get you into the position. And then I'm stepping my left knee back, and my foot's at the wall. So if this is something you haven't done before, your knee's probably not going to be all the way back into your support system, whether it be a wall or a piece of furniture. But I'm going to step my right foot forward into a lunge, and this low position's really great. It's very good, and you can work on getting lower with the hips, right? But eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you up into an upright position, and I'm not going to do long holds. I'm just going to do a few coming up and then bringing it down. So when I come up, I may want to come up onto my blocks, right? So I'm in this slightly higher position, which changes the angle, which will change the stretch, which will give you a different effect, right? And then it could be 90. I'm being a little bit obtuse, and then that's going to affect more of the hamstring and more of the hip. So it's like when you do the splits, it's longer. So some people say, well, this is incorrect, your foot's too much. Well, it's like the beginning of doing the splits. So it's actually not incorrect. It's something that you'll eventually be doing. But I'm going to come down, right? Because I said, as you get more flexible, you'll like longer holds. But I know very well that people that do not have the flexibility, I want to give them more of an outlet. And if you really are working on being more progressive, well, then you come up, each time you come up a little bit higher, right? So I'm really working my tailbone down, and I'm lifting through my pubis, and I'm not all the way up against the wall. I certainly can be, but some of the easier angles will eventually be better because they're not something that you're using, if that makes sense, right? So I'm going to step back with my right foot and then bringing my left foot forward. And I'm going to be obtuse with the knee rather than acute. So then I'm focusing more on my hamstring. So my left foot is forward, and then just start out low. Like we did that on the first side, we were low. And this is good. Low typically, like I said, is going to be easier, and it's stretching out your back. So if you're not doing plow, I like child's pose. Not a huge fan of it. I don't really teach it that often, but it's good. It's just I find something like this or like Happy Babies is there's a bit more range to it. But you could come up on your hands onto the blocks, and then I'm really trying to lift from my pubic bone. So lifting that up, and these are, see the correlation between Cobra and up dog. So lunging, like these lunging positions, are probably going to be safer on your back, most likely, than doing over and over and over again back bends, which, I think is better. It's a better way. But I'm going to come down for a moment, and then I'm going to come up, and then I'm coming up onto the thigh, and I'm lifting myself up. But if you were saying, hey, I really want to develop more range, you could do this more repetitively, like coming up and down. And you start with a low number, 5, 10, something like that. And then it could, as you consistently do that, well, then the number could be more. And it's not so much about the number, but it's really the in weightlifting, they call it time under tension. It's kind of like that. Getting more time in the position is that you're gonna get more practice in, because you really need more time in it. And I love yin. Yin is such a great practice, but with yin, you're really teaching your nervous system to always go to the same place, and it's good and it's comforting. But what I found with yin is that I never progressed. And I've done long holds, like 20-minute holds, 30-minute holds, like long holds. And typically you'd see like big results, not right away, but the next month or the following month, 2 months away, you really see results. And I didn't really see much change. So that's why I use more like the repetitive holds is what I use. So I'm going to come on into a forward bend just to take the pressure off your knees. So when I'm forward, just going to be rocking forward, rocking back. That's like kind of like a slow just a really easy introduction to that position. But if you want to go further with your practice, you really need that type of range. That's a great practice, and you don't really need a big warm up. You could do 5 minutes of whatever, just your warm up, and you could get right into this. I find sometimes that it's there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily need to do before you do these things. You could just do them a bit quicker, right? But I'm going to come into a seated position. I'm going to have my mat like I have it where it's double fold, just to have it a little bit more padded. And when I'm here, I'm going to have one foot out to the side. So my right foot is out to the side. So I'm on an angle. It's kind of like the lunge, but slightly different. But I'm bending my knee, so it adds a different stretch. So it's kind of like frog, but it's more the interior of the thigh, right? So it's a little different. When we're lunging, it's more hip extension. Here, it's more adduction. So I'm moving into the right knee or into the right foot, like I'm bending my knee, and then I'm coming up. Again, if it's really hard on the back knee, the knee that is down, you might need to be on a softer surface. But I'm going to come up. Now I'm going to change it where I'm going to be tucking the toes. My toes are tucked, and then I'm sitting forward as I am. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, and you may have to shorten the stance. I'm going to sit back on my foot. So I'm sitting on the back foot, just one side, and it's different because when you sit on both feet, it's very symmetrical. But I'm coming up again, and then I'm going to I'm tucking the toes and then sitting back on the heel. Right, so it's a toe stand position. And then one more time, I'm going to sit back on that foot, the left foot. So adjust the ankle. Right? And these are really uncomfortable positions. As long as you're not hurting yourself, they're very good to use. So I'm going to come off of that. I'm going to bring my right knee back. I'm just changing my orientation so you can see me better. My right foot is on the mat. My left foot is out to the left. And initially my foot's flat, just like it would be like in child's pose. But I'm going to bend my left knee, and then as I'm bending my left knee, you're getting more into the interior of the hip and the thigh. And changing the angles will help with the lunge. If you're always going down a linear line, you're probably missing some angles that could develop the position better, right? And then I'm going to come up, and then one more time I'm going to sit into it. And like I said, each time you come out of it, when you go into it, it's like really getting a fuller experience, like getting more depth. And I'm not holding it incredibly long, which is safe. Then I'm coming up, and then I'm going to tuck the toes, and I'm going to sit back on the foot. So my pelvis is touching my heel. For you, it may not. You can get creative. Put a cushion on your heel and sit back on it. And then I'm going to come back where I'm untucking the toes, and then I'm sitting back on the foot. And again, just the very beginning to this, like something like this can be a really nice practice. And that could be something that you could do like in the evening, 5-10 minutes. These type of ground positions are very good for lower body mobility. I'm going to come up where I'm tucking the toes and I'm sitting back on the heel. And you'll find that one foot, one toe, might be more stiff than the other. And then last time I'm untucking the toe, and then I'm sitting back on the heel. And you can move the weight around to adjust the foot. I might not have that knee flexion yet, but that's a big reason why I'm doing this. So I'm going to come off the foot, and then I'm coming forward. I'm just going to stretch the legs out wide. I'm just going to point through my feet. And then I'm flexing through the feet, and I'm pointing. I'm just going to keep the pointed of the feet, and I'm scrunching up the toes, and then I'm spacing out the toes. So I'm scrunching them up, and then I'm spacing them out. So sit cross-legged. As you sit cross-legged, take the right hand to the right side, reach the left hand to the left, lean forward towards your knees. You can see how that is. Lean back in space. And I did do a lot of side bending, but I find side bending just, so like a base level and helping the side of the body be, more less rigid. I'm going to come up, I'm going to recross the legs, and then as I recross, I'm going to take my left hand to the left and the right hand to the right. I'm leaning forward towards my knees, or I'm leaning back, right, finding the right angle for you. And the hand could be on a chair, it could be behind your head, and then bringing yourself back up. And as you're up, sitting nice and tall. You could be sitting on a higher surface, but what we did today should be a little easier than sitting on the floor. And that's a good way to measure it. How well do you sit on the floor? And if you don't have a dedicated seated practice, just set up something in your house or in your office so that when you get up, you spend a little bit more time throughout the day in these positions, and find at least 3 positions that work for you and keep changing them up. Don't always sit in the same positions. So I hope the class helped you today. I enjoyed teaching it. Let me know how it's going. You can like, share, and subscribe to the video. You can let people know that of my services so that I can help them if you found that someone that's actually in need of a practice. I'm very much interested in helping people, and that's why I've got into yoga and teaching it, and that's why I continue to teach it. So have a beautiful weekend. Hopefully I'll have you soon in class. And you can always check out my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. If you'd like to make a donation, you can make a donation. It's through Venmo. You can see my account there. It's Jon Witt Yoga, or my PayPal. It's Jon Witt Yoga as well. All right. Take care of yourselves.